all I wanted to do was grind as hard as I could every single day and just try to record whatever I was feeling that day, not in relation to anything else. So record a section, come out at the very next day, but don't listen to anything you recorded yesterday. Just whatever you're feeling today. Make a transition to it, make so it's seamless, but at the same time, don't really care about where you were. Think about where you are right now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the DP Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Pinto, and today's guest is a guy that I actually met while I was going to music school at Musicians Institute towards the last 2 quarters of my year and a half long trek there. And this gentleman was, when I saw him, I thought a very virtuosic player, very, big shredder, very technical player. And when we first met, personality-wise, I think we were both very unsure of each other. I don't think we really got off on the right foot because I think maybe we both had preconceptions of each other. But we actually ended up bonding over a guitarist named Michael Lee Firkins, who was like a early 90s kind of underground shredder for Shrapnel Records, I believe. And kind of bonded over that, and that kind of helped open the door into us becoming closer and closer friends. And we ended up living together for a few months in North Hollywood back in like 2016, 17. Either way, having these experiences had us become closer as friends. And, this guy's actually been in a solo band for as long as I've known him, or just his own solo project, I should say. And he's currently trying to promote his new album. Well, it's actually an EP, but it's called Detach by Thrailkill. Thrailkill. If you guys want to check it out. But without further ado, let's start the show with my guest, Wes Thrailkill. Hello and welcome to the DP Podcast, double penetrating your ears through both ear holes. With me today is a special guest. He's a fellow MI grad. Met him there at the Musicians Institute, crazy guitar player. He had his own band already when I met him called Mammoth, which eventually turned into Thrailkill. And with this band, it was all original music that he wrote himself, toured around the U.S., toured around Europe, did clinics in Germany. He's endorsed by Kiesel. This guy's like done it all when it comes to guitar, stuff that I would strive to be and still strive to do. Well, without further ado, my guest today is Wes Thrailkill. What's up, Wes?
Me, man. This is cool. Little apartment podcasting.
Yeah, man. Hey, just trying to make it work. But so, man, you have a new album out. But before we get into that, I don't really know much about your background when it came to your influences, or even how you even got into starting to play, at what age, really, because we never really got into that when we were talking. It was always about current events or whatever was going on in our lives, or whatever we liked already at that time. So tell me a little bit about where you grew up and stuff. I know you grew up in LA, right?
Yeah, South Bay LA, Palos Verdes, which is about 30 miles south of downtown, just on its own little peninsula. But I moved there when I was about, I want to say 11 years old, from South San Francisco.
Okay. So you were born in San Francisco?
Palo Alto, Stanford Hospital, actually. Not that matters, but yeah, Bay Area kid. And then I went back to UC Santa Cruz for college. So I'm always trying to get back up there because I feel like I resonate more with that kind of the vibe in NorCal, at least.
Are you making any moves to move over there?
Hopefully in the future. There's a lot of unknowns right now, but I think that's the plan eventually.
Okay. So when you moved to LA, were you already into music?
Yeah. I think I was just starting out.
When did you first pick up the guitar?
I was one of my good friends, my first kid I ever met. And when I was going to middle school, played soccer with him. He had a bass at his house. He had a Squier bass, and we'd go over to his house. We'd walk from the school. He lived right across the street, and he was playing stuff, like Smoke on the Water and all that stuff. Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit, all like the classic staples that you play when you first pick up any stringed instrument. And I just became obsessed with it. Told my dad that I really wanted to get a bass actually, and then he kind of shook his head and said, "No, you're going to play guitar," because he had played guitar. So that was kind of
really?
like the bad word for him in our house. So I remember going to Guitar Center our very first time with that same friend, and he asked, "Are you going to get a bass or guitar?" And my dad kind of answered for me. He said, "You're going to get a guitar." So I guess thank God I always loved the bass too. I guess my trajectory or career would have been a lot different if I chose something different early on.
Mm-hmm. And so, was your dad already influencing you musically then? If he was already like, hey, if my son is going to play, he's going to play guitar. Was he already like, oh, do you like these bands? Was he showing you music before you were even thinking about playing an instrument when you met this person?
Yeah, he's always shown me stuff. There's videos of me like dancing around to Thunderstruck as like a 4-year-old in our living room. But he would play Satriani and Steve Vai all the time.
Oh, so he was already showing you like really technical players.
Yeah, more like the kind of virtuosic stuff. Because I think outside of him, I think the first record I bought was Dookie by Green Day. Mm-hmm. And I became obsessed with that kind of guitar tone and stuff. When I first started playing, it was a lot of that and Blink-182. But he had always kind of threw Rush at me from a super early age, and that became like kind of like the catalyst band to get into more progressive music.
And so Rush was really your jump-off point for getting into because for those who don't know, Wes plays very technical, virtuosic music, and Rush is definitely the catalyst for a lot of people, especially in the modern day. So were you already thinking about playing that kind of music when you were at 11 or when you started picking up the guitar?
I think it started to make more sense when I started to write my own music.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 12, 13. I'd only been playing for like a year or two before I started writing my own songs. But
so you were just learning chords and playing power chords, just playing?
Yeah, just kind of wearing out every power chord up the neck, and then you start to discover all this interesting harmony. And then I think the biggest jumping point was probably Eddie Van Halen.
Okay, did your dad influence you at all when it came to? Did you have a teacher, or was he the one teaching you these beginning chords?
No, it was pretty much entirely self-taught. But
really?
He showed me a lot of Rush things, and within that same vein. But it was something that I just became obsessed with. Getting home from school, that's all I wanted to do was just lock myself in my room and just play.
Were you learning by ear? Were you just putting on records and being like, hey, let me listen to this and emulate it on my guitar?
Yeah, I think it was the dawn of like internet learning too. So it was like early 2000. So I was 11 in 2001, and that's when your first. We've learned so much more based on what you can do on the internet and just the resources we have available for that. But YouTube was huge, and just like guitar tablature sites that I don't even know if I'm sure they're around now, but now everybody's got Guitar Pro and they download a file, and that's what I sell to online are Guitar Pro files. But it was a lot of reading tabs, printing out tabs. Mm-hmm. Remember I had like a laminated book of I had like 2112, but laminated print out tabs, and I'd worship that for like a year or two, so try to learn all Alex Lifeson parts and stuff like that. But
do you feel at all like looking at your playing now, because I've talked about this with some other people when it comes to learning that way, when you learn by tablature, because you were learning by ear for sure, but if you look at just tablature, it's like, yes, you're learning all of these licks and stuff, but you're not really learning the sound of those licks and really making it your own, versus when you learn it by ear, it's like, oh, I know this color and I know where to implement it in this phrase or whatever situation it may be.
Yeah, when you're first starting out, you just want to like physically nail it to feel good. But then, when I discovered Eddie Van Halen, I was like, man, this guy's got his own like a thumbprint on everything. His tone, his Plexi Marshalls that were blasted up with Variacs and 4x12s that were blown out. And he was the first guy to put a humbucker in a Stratocaster. Mm-hmm. All the stuff he did with Floyd Rose, like that's almost like what I wanted to. That was like the trajectory that I wanted to be on for creating my own type of identity. Because Eddie Van Halen's got to be one of the most emulated players outside of like Hendrix and SRV.
I agree. Yeah, and just when he really made a turning point in music, in my opinion, because it went from being and sounding like yourself to sounding like that guy. Mm-hmm. He's really, which there's a lot of negatives to that, but I guess there's a lot of positives too, because it's like, hey, imitation's the highest form of flattery.
Yeah, but you won't want to take it so far where you're ripping people off. I see a lot with the gentler stuff now. People are just carbon copies of
Can you explain that to people listening what that is? Because a lot of people don't know that gent genre.
I guess it was spawned by Meshuggah, and then bands like Periphery kind of popularized it and made it a slightly more poppy. So you got a lot of these kids who play, the same type of gear in their bedroom and they're creating music. It's hard to distinguish and hard to hear differences because it's all kind of trying to do the same thing. It's more of like I don't want to say, wow, look at me music, but that's almost like, it's a flavor of the week, I feel like, but it's almost stayed too long. And I wish people would get more into like really harnessing their original sound and trying to sound like themselves.
I feel that's probably why rock music has not been as popular as it should be, because there's no innovation. I mean, you look at certain bands. I forgot the name of that band that sounds like Led Zeppelin. Greta Van Fleet.
Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah.
Fleet, whatever.
Fleet, yeah, whatever. They sound exactly like Zeppelin, and that's just the rock trajectory we're on. Is people just imitating the people who came before them instead of having something innovative, which you still see in every genre, even pop.
Well, not to say there aren't people in every genre. Really,
oh no, there's people innovating, of course.
Innovating, but it's harder to find those artists because you have to dig a little bit further through the wormhole to really discover those kind of bands, because those aren't the bands you're going to really hear on the radio, and they're not going to be talked about. But every once in a while, one of those bands comes up and really blows your mind. And that's what I'm always looking for, that next band that really kind of blows me away, and then they give me new inspiration to write different types of music. I think Car Bomb was probably the most recent band like that.
Okay.
It's like a Dillinger and Meshuggah love child, but just
super intense rhythmically.
Super intense rhythmically, and they're doing a lot of stuff that I think most bands wouldn't even like venture or foray into because it's so. I don't know. It's daring in its own kind of way. It's really exciting to listen to as a musician too.
It really puts a strain on just the human mind. I mean, these guys usually need even a click to stay in time. Just to be able to play it with just off human instinct is so difficult.
Those guys, I don't think they play to a click live, which makes it even more nuts.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's so hard to find those types of people because everybody needs to really excel in that area. You can't have one like weak link in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's always cool going to a show like that and seeing people in the crowd like bobbing their head in different meters. Mm-hmm. And then it all kind of comes back to, more uniform bobbing, like every Meshuggah show I've ever seen. Like there's such an energy in the crowd where everyone's kind of like going in this kind of I don't know, worshiping motion. But you see other people that are experiencing the meter in different ways too. Mm-hmm. And I always try to listen. That kind of music always sounds different to me every time I listen to it. I'm always trying to hear something new, and I mean, it's infinite, really. I mean, every time I listen to like the Contortionists, I always pick out one little thing that I've never even heard before. I've heard the record, hundreds of times. So I think that's kind of like, I guess, the trajectory I wish more people would follow. Create really interesting like studio albums for people to always kind of unlock something new every time I listen to it. Like
Sgt. Pepper's type of thing, or origins of it. Mm-hmm. But so let's go back to what even got you into that genre of music, because so you're getting into Rush, you're starting to write your own music at the age of 13. I'm assuming this music was not the most complicated thing, but you said this is the time when you got into Rush, and that's when you got into wanting to songwrite, and hearing music, whether it's from the first album I heard from you, Polymorphism, or your most recent one that I just listened to. You always have those types of Alex Lifeson, who's the guitarist for Rush. You have his types of sounds, whether it's like that open string, pulling off sound, or open string chord sound. So tell me a little bit about from that jumping off point.
Experimenting with effects. I mean, your first rig as a kid is always something, like a 1x12 with, as much distortion as possible, but then you start to really discover.
What was your first guitar? Just a little...
It was an Ibanez RG 200.
Oh, okay.
I still have it too. I painted it and the whole deal, but... I loved that guitar. I remember the first time I broke a string, I started crying because I thought I really damaged the guitar. I literally had no clue that you could just... I mean, I break strings all the time now, like almost daily. I had no idea that was going to be so cheap to fix. And I started bawling. I was like a 10-year-old kid, and I was like freaking out that my dad was going to come home.
Like you thought you wrecked the car.
Yeah, exactly. But it's, such a mundane thing. But it's funny looking back and thinking about things like that. But then, getting effects pedals and amps with
getting like Metal Zone.
I never got the Metal Zone. I had all those Dan Electro little guys, like all the surf kind of distortions and reverb.
The ones with the actual little designs on them.
Yeah, all the different colors to do different things, and that was my first foray into like experimenting with different pedals and stuff. And then I had a crate amp.
Why did you want to get pedals? Was it because you were just trying to emulate the sounds, or? Yeah,
I was fascinated with kind of some of the sounds that I couldn't get just from like a direct guitar tone. I mean, all this open, lush chorus that I have an Axe effects
reverb,
and I think it's perfect for the kind of stuff I want to do because it's so endless in crafting your own tone. I mean, that's kind of it's another segue of musicianship, not only creating your own tone, but constantly trying to innovate on it and make it sound interesting to you. Because if you play the same tone all the time, you're going to get uninspired.
Yeah. So from that young age, you weren't necessarily trying to find your own sound, but you were at that time you're just trying to emulate what you were hearing and trying to get a grasp of it. You're trying to learn your craft.
Yeah, exactly. I guess going to school for myself, but I'm still doing it too. I feel like nothing has changed since day one. I'm still trying to explore and find new things. Now, obviously, I have a way better grasp of it, but I don't feel like there's ever going to be a ceiling to it. There's always so much.
Yeah, top of the mountain.
Do. Yeah, it's just it's all an uphill climb, and some days it's harder to figure it out than others, and some days are really easy. But
so when were you playing? Oh, sorry. So when were you playing live shows then?
I guess my first live show was when I was 12.
12 already?
Yeah.
So before you even started writing songs, you were already playing with the band and everything?
Yeah, we were playing cover songs.
Like Blink-182, Green Day, what you were listening to?
It was like Chuck Berry and like Van Halen.
Oh, wow. Van Halen already?
Yeah. And...
like Panama or...
Dance the Night Away, Panama, all the easier kind of like slap
Jump.
back chord. No, I don't think we were doing Jump. But a lot of stuff off Van Halen 1, that became like my favorite record ever. When I would play that.
That has like his best tone, or one of his best tones, 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's just like fearless too. The way he approaches like everything, and it's all live in the same room together, and you feel that vibe, and they throw it through this nuts reverb tank, and everything sounds massive. And David Lee Roth's vocals are like out of tune, but it's all about the vibe that those guys are doing on that, and almost sounded like you were listening to a live band. I guess that's what every early or DLR era album before Fair Warning was. It was very like live and raw.
I mean, I feel like a lot of records in back then, and especially in the 70s, were that way, because that was like the spawn of the live album. You had so many people just not playing to a click. It's like all those Motown records. I mean, that's like 60s, but even 70s. Just people just, all right, ready, 1, 2, 3, all right, boom, let's go.
Yeah, that kind of art has been lost. I feel like with all the production and how easy it is to record something now. Everything
or
has
fix
to be
things.
So perfect. Yeah, everybody feels like they can fix something in post, and that's like. I don't know, it's such an evil way to go about it, because I feel like the only really real way to learn how to play music is in a room with other people at the same time.
Mm-hmm. But there's also a lot of beauty that's come from it. People being able, like yourself on this album, being able to record an entire EP by yourself. Mm-hmm. For those listening, on his EP, he recorded all the bass, drums, keys, everything. He played all the guitar, but when it came to everything else, he programmed it. And, you couldn't do that in 1977.
Yeah, I was actually talking about this the other day with one of my friends. I think it's amazing the kind of technology we have at our fingertips. And you'd be stupid not to take advantage of it. Mm-hmm. But always at the end of the day, remember like why you started playing music in the first place. You didn't do it to sit in a MIDI scroll and highlight velocities to its perfect thing. It's like that's something you're doing trying to make computers sound more human, and humans are trying to sound more like computers. It's like finding that kind of in between of realness now.
And creativity and innovation too.
Yeah, exactly.
So then you were already playing gigs, and then when did Mammoth start? Did you start that already in high school, or were you already going off to college, or if you even went to college?
Yeah, we started it in high school. I think I was 14 at the time, and we were playing a lot of local shows.
As in you and like a couple of friends?
Yeah, a bass player and a drummer, just a trio. We'd been playing for a couple of years together, and in our garages and writing original music. And then we started to play, little local gymnasiums and stuff like that, and that became the thing I just looked forward to more than sports at the time. I was playing a lot of baseball, but all I really cared about was playing these live shows, because that's when I felt the most alive. And then it just got bigger and bigger the older I got.
So you were probably practicing, and then, hey, I learned this new Joe Satriani lick. Let me go try it live.
Maybe not the exact same lick, but
you know what I mean. It's try to apply what you learned.
Yeah, exactly. I see him do a certain whammy bar dive or something like that, and slowly implement that into like a live solo or something.
Mm-hmm. And then. So were you guys already writing your own like solo music, like your own original music, or were you guys just doing covers, like just Rush band? Because it seems like trios, maybe some Rush covers, or were you guys just okay? This is the plan. We're gonna freaking rule the world with our music.
It was more exciting to write original music, always for me. I mean, I know there's plenty of people that are totally cool with playing cover music their entire life, and there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't feel like I would be getting the most out of what I wanted to do and say, so I had to write my own music. to feel good about myself.
But the other band members didn't feel that way, or were they just kind of there along for the ride, or were you the only serious one in this first iteration of the band?
Well, it's hard to say. No one was serious. I think everyone shared a interest in playing shows, and that's when we felt like we were on top of our game. So we strived to play the biggest show possible with the most rehearsed original material.
Okay, but I mean, in the sense of writing original material, were they also so involved? Were they just like, oh, I just want to play shows, this is cool? Not that they weren't motivated or interested in it, but just you were the one that was like, okay, more gung-ho about it. You were more all in with the band. Like, oh, this is actually something that can happen.
I mean, yeah, I've always wanted to be super gung-ho about it because, why not? I always wanted to be all in with whatever I was doing. But I guess sometimes I've ran into players that are more not hired guns, but less worried about getting in your way creatively. So you can outline everything for them and they kind of play it to a T. But I've always gotten the most out of players that kind of bring their own flair and because I can show this is what I want out of something, but then they can be like, well, I'm not a drummer, so the drummer can show me this is more interesting part over what you've already shown me. So rely on them because they're playing their own instruments and I'm relied for guitar. So
when you graduated from high school, were you still with these guys, or were you guys like, okay, we're done with high school, like time to go our separate ways, Mammoth is done? Or were you like, oh, this is still a thing, or what was the transitional period between that? From high school to college.
The first EP was 2012, Shapeless. So it was like the end of my college, but I still had the original.
So after high school, you were together.
We weren't playing as many shows, obviously, because I was back up at school, and I was playing with another band in college, like a fun jammy band, but it wasn't as serious as what I was doing back home. So those guys were still on the first record, and then the second record was people I found when I started going to Musicians Institute. And that was one of my main goals there, was to really kind of network and find people that were in the same kind of mindset as me, because the original guys, they were doing their own thing too.
So 2012, you graduate and you release your first album, and then the second one, now you're at MI, and that's where I met you. So this was like 2013 then?
Yeah, because I worked for about a year at a golf course after college, living up in Santa Cruz. And then I was pretty gung-ho about going back to school for music. I got an economics degree, and I really didn't want to get into that kind of career path right away. I've always felt like it's a good fallback, but I'm glad I went to music school at that time because it kind of cemented, exactly where I needed to be and what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. So when you went to MI and you finally get there, what were your goals? Like, okay, well, what were your goals when you were going to music school? Why were you so gung-ho about it? Was it just to learn? Was it to meet people? Like, well, what were your goals in the long run? Because everybody goes to MI for different things, whether it's like going out from an out-of-state or out-of-country place to be in the center of Hollywood to meet and network and start their career because they already have the tools, or to learn from the teachers. So what was it for you?
I guess the main thing was to network, but really kind of go all in and be serious about, my craft. And I had never gotten a formal education for anything, musically at all. And, starting with level 1 harmony and theory was real kind of an eye-opener, but it kind of let me know it was just more of like gluing the pieces together, because obviously I had a good grasp on what I was doing musically, but I wasn't opened up to this whole new world of what session players are. And that's what MI was really trying to crank out, I think, train you in such a way where you could play like any gig and get as many gigs as possible in the real world. It wasn't about, honing your own craft. And that's why
your particular skill.
Yeah, exactly. It was,
but that's you do that outside of school. Like you were looking for something to hone exactly what you wanted when they were just trying to give the tools for anybody.
Yeah, so it was kind of weird meeting a lot of the kids that almost were treating it like as a rock and roll day camp. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's plenty of kids there too that are above and beyond, and those are the kids I always kind of gravitated towards because they were so serious about their craft. And that's where I met Chase and Yas and Aliar, who I played with in the future. And at the time I was going there. But it was nice to finally meet people that felt the same way as me, were into the same music as me, that were that dedicated. I mean, they obsessed over it. Just like I did. So that was nice about going to school.
So, I mean, once you join MI, you meet Chase, Yas, all your people who just mentioned who joined your band. And so were you thinking, okay, when you met these people, oh, I want to put them a part of my fold of my band? Because you already seem like, okay, this school isn't necessarily working towards what I want, which is to make your own music, but you have these students that are phenomenal. Now you can add them to your fold. So how long did that take? And were you like, oh, hey guys, what was the convincing process? How did you all meet? How did that album come about?
I guess I went through a lot of different players and trying different drummers and bass players out at the school. And when I discovered those guys, it was kind of like a no-brainer. Like, these are the guys you need to be with. Some kind of unsaid energy in the room, or when you meet somebody. And when I first met Aliar, he could barely speak English, but when we played together in the same room, I was like, man, I've never heard anyone communicate musically with me like that before. So it was like a no-brainer to keep pursuing that. And I feel like me and Chase were like, kindred spirits from the beginning, because he worshipped Rush just like I did. The first night we ever hung out, we got a bunch of Canadian beer and just listened to Rush the entire night and just geeked out. Like, I'd never really gotten to do that with anyone like other than my dad. So I knew this guy was in the right headspace too. And all we wanted to do is create, super forward original music and try to always push it. And then when we did Polymorphism, it was like almost like a testament to us, just like trying as much as we could to create something that was out of the ordinary for even the groups that were at school. There were a lot of, death metal bands and pop artists and stuff like that, but there weren't too many people playing like, I guess, abstract progressive music. So we kind of cemented that as like the act at act school for that time. And then started playing in other local scenes that were doing, I guess, more math rocky stuff. But I even forgot the name of the independent collective we were a part of, but we made friends with a lot of people around Pasadena, LA, and the Valley that were playing anywhere from house parties to local bars and stuff like that. And that's where we kind of really honed our live gig, because we played, so much, 2 to 3 times a week, and we didn't care if we were getting paid or not. We just really wanted to get out and play and get better. It was just about all getting better.
Yeah, I remember when you guys were playing. Like, I went out to came out to see you guys a couple of the shows, whether it was at the Whiskey or in Pasadena or downtown LA, wherever. But I remember you guys you were taking a class for independent artists, right? Mm-hmm. And then you guys have a competition at the end of the quarter to basically kind of like a battle of the bands, but for all the independent artists. Mm-hmm. And whoever wins got studio time at MI. Mm-hmm. And I remember that you guys went up and played, and then Barry Squire, who is a gentleman who worked, or I don't know if he still does, but worked for MI for relations between artists. Like, he would get you the audition with CeeLo Green or XYZ artists. Like, he was the connect. And after he saw you guys, because he was one of the judges, after he saw you, he said, "Oh, MI's back." I
don't remember that, but that's awesome.
Yeah, that's one of the things, and especially someone who will hopefully have on the podcast, Panda. I'll just leave him like that with that nickname.
Is he still in Mexico?
Yeah, he's still in Mexico. But when if we have Panda on, but that's something he always talks about with a lot of like joy, because he was a big fan of you guys too. No. So so then you guys are at MI. You released this album. Did it do anything for you? Did you guys get any offers? Was there any sort of reaction to it from the public?
I guess I was even before the album before, I slowly started to build like an online presence, and that's, hitting up a lot of blogs and reviewers and things like that. And because I guess the only way you're going to get anywhere is if you know people. That's just how the world works. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we had cemented ourselves in a local scene, but we really wanted to get out and tour. So we were the opening band for a lot of different bands back in the day, and we opened for Haken, and they really took to us, and we ended up touring with them later. So that was kind of like our foothold into a more like online, well-known presence, was getting out and touring the States.
And that was after MI?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then were everybody in the band pretty much like on board, like, hey, let's write more music, or were you pretty much writing most of the music? How was that collaborative effort?
I guess when Chase left the band, it was more just it was less collaborative because he
he left because he had other offers that he had to take, So that's why him, and then a mutual friend of ours ended up joining your band.
Yeah, Yas was kind of the perfect guy to fill in for Chase. He's a phenomenal bass player and musician and guitar player, kind of a scary guitar player too. But he fit the shoes really well, and we did deviations together. That was still with Aliar. And then mid-tour, Aliar had to leave to go play a tour in Paris with a jazz orchestra. So Lang became the fill-in guy for that tour. And then I enjoyed playing with Lang so much that I chose him and Yas to do the next record with. So the sound on that, I guess the most recent one that came out, is a lot heavier. It's a lot more double kick and in that realm, because with
And that's
Aliar
Deviations.
that was Everything That Is You.
Oh, Everything That Is You. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Deviations with Aliar and Yas, and it's a lot more fusiony. I think I took a lot.
And that came
more
out how long
chances.
after?
I want to say that was 2016, and Everything That Is You was the end of 2018.
2018. Okay.
So I don't even know what number I'm on now, but yeah, it's been a weird progression, especially listening back. But at the time, I was super proud of everything I was doing. But it's funny to listen back, and I just crack myself up, even listen to what I thought was good back in the day. Hear intonation problems, timing, tuning. It's like, man, I sucked, But
it's nice to see that progression too.
Yeah, I guess it's better this way than the opposite. Looking back and being like, man, I degraded.
So then that brings us to now the amalgamation of all of these experiences that you've had from, starting to learn guitar and having Rush be your influence, to meeting people like Chase or Aliar, who I'm sure playing with them influenced you in certain ways. Same with Yaz and Lang. So now we're here in 2020, and you're going to release an EP. Mm-hmm. So I just listened to it. And do you want to talk a little bit about that EP and like basically how it came? Like, don't even like, even because I know it came during COVID, but what was your mindset before? Were you already thinking about having an album, or were you just not inspired?
I think I was in a bit of a slump because I had been writing the next record, which I wanted to do, which I still am doing with Aliar and Chase, because we played a gig at Euroblast in Germany together. It was like a throwback set, and it felt really good to play with those guys again. It kind of reharnessed that energy that we used to have back in the day. So we kind of came to the conclusion that we have to write another record together. Mm-hmm. We'll figure out how to do it. And I was kind of slowly putting together the pieces for that and writing different music, but I hadn't really. Chase recorded some stuff on it, but Aliar hadn't really done anything yet because he was still, pretty busy back in Germany. It's been hard to, I guess, when everybody's in different places, get something collaboratively going. So
and everybody has their schedule, because I know Aliar was gigging and touring with people, and Chase is also super busy gigging with Warbringer and stuff like that.
So I guess we didn't set a time on it, but I had always had this this want to do something as a solo project that was really pushing my envelope and trying to create stuff that was almost unplayable and just so technical to a point that where I could listen to it for myself and be like, damn, this is sick.
Yeah, from hearing it, especially at the end, I was like, God damn, bro, what the, but yeah, it was pretty impressive. But anyway, sorry, continue.
So I guess in quarantine, I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I don't think I am saying that most creative people were kind of in this kind of weird kind of limbo, because I almost felt like people in society were going to put pressure on creatives to start producing stuff. Now that we have all this time alone and all this time, it's like, all right, where's all the art that's being pushed out? And it was just like weird pressure to feel like I had to create something worth meaning.
Yeah, I think there were two boats in that, and I completely agree with what you're saying. There was the boat of the people who are like, oh, we have all this time, let's make a cover, let's do this or that, which, yeah, I mean, I was hit up for that, and I mean, plenty of people were doing that. And then there was the other boat where people are like, I don't even know what this future, because I guess people who were more set in reality kind of realized, hey, this COVID thing might not last for just 2 weeks, might be going on a lot longer, and I don't know if I'm going to have a gig in 6 months, let alone tomorrow.
I think it's very safe to say that everyone misses live performances. I mean, whether
For
you're
sure.
a musician or not, it's like, fuck, man, I really miss just going to shows and just having that kind of energy. It's so different in this online realm that everyone lives in behind a screen. And that's our main form of communication now. And
exactly.
It's great with technology, what you can do, but I think we long for that kind of in-person human connection.
Yeah, but see, this thing is about that reality setting in, is it causes that sort of mindset, that kind of depression, where it doesn't want to make you create, because you realize what's after this.
Well, it's like we've never been put in this kind of situation before. So how have we created in the past? We never had this thing going on in our world or in society. So now we have to learn how to function in it and also create in it too. But I think at the beginning it wasn't about creating anything. It was just like, the fuck's going on in the world, you know?
I definitely hear that, especially in the first half of the song of the EP. I definitely hear that coming through, especially in the first 3.5 minutes. That's sort of because the album starts, or the EP starts, very aggressive, and then it gets kind of like calm, as if like, oh well, things will get better, and then you kind of fall back into that voice in your head, and it gets angry again, and then it calms down, because you can kind of hear the transition from the 3 minutes and 30 seconds to the next section, and you hear another transition to 5 minutes. And for me, where the song really stops being about that is after the first like big guitar solo, and then kind of transitions into another song. Mm-hmm. And anyways, so how we're talking about COVID and how this affects us, I'm sure that affected your album. So you want to get into that?
Yeah, I mean, that was a direct correlation to what was going on in my life. My job was all over the place. Teaching kind of dropped off because I think it financially hit a lot of people in the beginning, but thankfully it's a lot of gigs and commission work has kind of gotten better because people are learning how to, I guess, financially get through this too. There was a lot of unknowns in the beginning, but all I wanted to do was grind as hard as I could every single day in my DAW and just try to record whatever I was feeling that day, not in relation to anything else. So record a section. And then I guess how the whole EP was written was come out it the very next day, but don't listen to anything you recorded yesterday. Just whatever you're feeling today. Make a transition to it, so it's seamless, but at the same time, don't really care about where you were. Think about where you are right now. That became the central theme of the record, was detaching from thinking about the past or the future and worrying really, and just being right here, right now, and trying to do as much as I could in that moment to write something. So I think I got very meticulous with sections that were 15 to 20 seconds, and be as meticulous as I could in 8 hours of a day. And then the next day I was done with it. I moved on to a completely different kind of vibe. So I guess you can hear that too when you listen to it.
Sorry to interrupt, but I guess that goes back to what you were saying, kind of finding that middle ground between trying to get that perfection in the studio, but also being like, you know what, I'm just going to leave it alone. Time to move on to the next piece.
Yeah, so I guess it's weird now to go back and kind of fine tune everything from looking at it from a one piece standpoint, but that wasn't the intention at all in the beginning. The beginning, it was just like, write as much as you can and who cares what it is, because I was so second guessing everything I was doing, and it had to be a perfect or a certain way. I thought it had to be a certain type of way, and I got over that hump of just saying who cares what it is, and just do it. So I think that became almost like my own, I guess, religion day to day, and I look forward to just sitting down and just writing whatever came out.
It sounds to me like you just kind of shut the voice inside your head, because it seemed like you had a voice telling you like, oh, well, somebody's going to care about this or do that. And you're like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to put what's out there, but whatever creative thought I have in my mind, put it on the canvas, is what it is. I'm going to work on it the best I can, move on to the next day. Yeah,
I think that was very liberating to do it that way. And I've never written anything like that before. And it's weird to listen back. Sometimes it's like, how the hell did I write that? I don't know where it came from.
It was in the moment, as you were explaining.
Yeah. So everything in the past, I've been so meticulous on a different level of, seeing it as one huge, artistic endeavor. But now it's just like, this is what I did today. This is what I did the next day, and it only took me about, I want to say 3 months, but I was, grinding at it every day, and I was so obsessed with it.
So when did you start working on the album? Because March 16th we closed for COVID. So then there's definitely, I feel a lot of people were going through different phases, but there was definitely different ways that people were mourning or coping with it.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning, see all the memes, and people talk about the beginning of quarantine and how much better it was, and it was like Netflix binge, video games, and like, it was kind of nice.
Tiger King.
Yeah, Tiger King was out. It was kind of nice when it started, in a weird kind of post-apocalyptic
pseudo way.
Yeah, we just got to play a bunch of video games and not work and watch all our favorite shit on Netflix, but it's like, that kind of got old really quick, because the world wasn't going back to normal. Yeah, it's like, fuck, we don't have sports, we can't go to events, and I see the same four walls every single day.
And we're social creatures.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I was kind of going insane. So I tried to play as much golf as possible and just get out, but I wasn't really focused on music at all. It wasn't like at the forefront of my life how it usually is. And I guess I was depressed in a way that it wasn't the forefront of my life, because I feel like when it is the very forefront of my life, that's when I'm my happiest. So I wanted to make that a priority, I guess 3 months later.
Because even for myself, for me, it went through like when it first happened, I'm like, I'm going to take advantage of this time. So like the first 3 months, I was like just practicing. And then I just went like kind of that's when my morning phase started. And I was like, I didn't play for like a month and a half, like period. But then I felt a reset. And I'm like, oh, well, now I have, like, for example, I bought, like, the MIDI keyboard. And I'm like, I can work with this. And it kind of reinvigorated me, not just in guitar, but just in music in general. And to me, it seems like you had a lot to think about in that time, especially because you're playing golf. You're out there by yourself. You're kind of a meditation in a lot of ways.
Did you have a realization at all when you were taking the time away from music? Like, what was the trigger for you to be like, I need to get back into it? You said you took a month and a half off. Or was there an aha moment at all?
There was. I felt like music had been taken away from me, but then I realized, like, I don't need to play live. Like, music is a language, and to me, the best feeling is communicating that language with people on stage, or with, like, if you and me jam, or like, but I prefer like in a band jamming with. I'm sure you do too. That energy, as you say, you get from Aliyar or whoever you're playing with.
It's unlike anything ever. It's the best feeling on the planet.
Right, and I don't need to be paid to do that. I don't need to take a plane ticket somewhere to do that. And also just being able to collaborate with people, or even doing this podcast, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to write the intros for people. That way I'm always not playing covers of what they want to hear, but I'm making covers of what I want to do while learning my craft.
Yeah, so you're doing something completely new, even though it's kind of forcing you into that creative space.
Right. So that's why just realizing that this is who I am, and I'm just gonna keep doing it, and nothing's gonna take that away, you know. And because a lot of people, I feel that's what I mean by the morning. It's like they feel the death of their career. Even my girlfriend was telling me, you know, like where she works was shut down. Don't want to mention where she works, but where she works got shut down, and she was just like really thinking about her career and what she's gonna do. So for her, the morning phase kind of started a little earlier because it was just kind of hitting her a little harder, you know, and then she got over it. Versus for me, I'm like, I try to be as optimistic as possible, even though I knew, hey, this probably won't go by till at least June. Back when I was in March, is what I was thinking. So, and then as things were progressively getting worse, you know, as I saw George Floyd, for example, I was like, that was probably the turning point for me, where I got really depressed, and I was just like, this is not gonna, like, we lost 2020. This isn't gonna be going on for any time longer, and I'm like,
the way out of it for you is getting back into music.
Yeah, but it took a while to get there at that point, you know.
Did you feel like at the beginning it was okay to take a break? It almost felt like that for me. It's like, I shouldn't be worried about my own creative, you know, mind right now. I need to like clue into what's going on in the world, so I can like evaluate in such a way to become a better person, or whatever the fuck that means.
I think I needed to clean my room. You know what I mean? Like, hypothetically, like, I needed to get my shit together. Like, just
it's fairly clean right now.
Yeah,
at least shit in the corner, but it's fairly tidy.
Oh man, it's because you're here. If you weren't, no. But no, for real though, it's just having that just having that mental health, that welfare check on yourself. You know, making sure, okay, you know what, I'm going to fix my sleep schedule, because I'm sure everybody's sleep schedule got out of whack. So just doing little steps to be like, okay, I can do this. Okay, let me go out for a run. Let me go out for a hike, because now the trails are open. Let me start getting back into the rhythm of things. Just because, I mean, going on that hike, like, to Los Leones trails and being at the top, you're like, yo, why am I even worried? Like, there's so much in this world. You know, and everybody's hiking. Like, it's all in your head. And that's what I'm saying, is learning to shut that voice up. And that's what you did with this album.
I guess I came to the realization that a lot of the things that I worry about on a day-to-day basis just aren't important in the long run. And yeah, a way for me to get out of that was do what makes you happy. What makes me happy is playing music. Even if that's by myself, I still, you know, get a kick out of it to this day. Just even playing to a backing track, or, you know, writing my own music just with a grid in a DAW. Like, I'm going to get way more out of that day as opposed to, you know, binging some stupid documentary on Netflix, even though I still do that all the time, because I'm always trying to open up my mind in different ways and read different things. But
I think the key is making sure that that voice, that negative energy to stay away, you know, by keeping your mind busy. Because when you're trapped inside these four walls, things get crazy.
Stay occupied, and getting outside has been huge, and golf has been great for me because it forces me outside, and occupying my mind with good energy, not really trying to stay in the moment. I guess that's the whole thing, and not worrying about, you know, what's going on outside. All I can do is take care of myself.
Mm-hmm. And so now that you're done with this album or this EP, when's it coming out?
I think within the next week, I'm going to just, you know, try to rinse it as much as possible and make sure I'm okay with sending the stems out. And then the process of getting it mixed, the back and forth with the mixer and the mastering engineer, and then finding, I guess, the right outlet to market it before it comes out, which is huge because all we have now is this online digital platform. So do as much marketing on that as I can with hitting up reviewers and blogs and try to put it in, I guess, the right avenues before it's actually fully out. Because once it's out, like, no going back, which is always, it's kind of a weight off your shoulders, but at the same time, there's like that postpartum, every time I've released something, at least, I don't know if you're the same way. When I release something, it's like I lived inside this world for a little bit and it made me so happy. Now that I can't be inside of that anymore, it's like I lost something of myself, but I want people to experience it, but I almost like wanted it just for me too, if that makes sense.
Really? Because when I get it out, I'm like, I'm glad it's done. Like, if it's the best that it could be, you know? Well, yeah, if you feel that it's not complete, it's definitely that, but you never do feel that it's complete in a way.
I don't think you can ever feel something is fully complete because there's infinite changes you can make to anything. But there's a part you just have to take a step back and be like, there's nothing, I'm just making it worse at this point and overthinking it. And
so do you still feel tension now, like because everything's done recording wise, but you still feel that pressure and stuff? You're like, okay, well, I still need to market this. I still need to sell my product.
Yeah, because the job's not done yet. Otherwise, I would just, you know, release it onto whatever medium and just be like, here it is. But I still feel like it needs to be put out there in such a way so we can have more weight once it is out. And that comes with a story and artwork and all the video stuff you can do with it. But like, you want it to give it the right packaging as opposed to just putting it out there. Because there's plenty of demos I can just put out without touching it up or mixing it or putting any other element to it. Just be like, here you go. That doesn't have as much weight as something that you really spend time with day in and day out and editing just the smallest little details. So it becomes like something you live inside of. Now, I guess that's what I was trying to say. It's kind of depressing when you just get out of that because you become so obsessed with this one thing and it becomes...
And now it's gone.
Now it's gone.
Yeah, have you ever seen Rodney Mullen talk about when he took a break off of skating?
Mm-mm.
He talks about how skating was his life and he was just doing competitions, always getting first place because he was perfect. And then, you know, he had to stop competing because it was just getting to his head in a negative way that his dad said, you can't compete anymore. And he did a competition and didn't get first place for the first time in God knows how long. And he stopped eating. It took away his soul, his essence, his being, the thing that motivated him to keep going. And that was taken away from something that wasn't even COVID. So to have it just ripped away from you when you're so used to it, and then all of a sudden someone takes away, I can see why so many people are acting like kids, whether they're adults. All these Karens that are like, I don't want to wear my face, because it's just we're reacting in such a negative way because we're so used to what it is.
Would you change your name if it was Karen?
Would I change my name? Yeah.
What would you change it to? How can you
Crystal.
Karen to Crystal?
Yeah, because then I think I want to get Crystal to be the new Karen better
Crystal
than...
meth.
Yeah.
Nice.
I feel like that'd be good. What about you?
I actually met a Karen the other day on the golf course. Hi, my name's Karen. I was like, fuck, that's brutal in today's age.
Yeah, no, but there's a whole movement to change that, to get rid of that whole stigma.
Stigma, yeah. There's a lot of movements to get rid of stigma.
Yeah, right.
As there should be, but...
But man, so tell me, what's the future for Thrailkill? What are you looking for? Because I know you're working. Well, you mentioned I didn't know you were working on this album with Chase, but you said you're working on that. So what's the future? I mean, in this COVID world, I mean, I understand everything's crazy, and I mean, we're getting closer to the end of 2020. I
guess to release this EP by towards the end of the year, close that chapter, getting that out of my system, that solo endeavor, and then getting back to the core of what I've been wanting to do since the beginning is producing records with other people. And I think I might go about this one in a different way than other records and might be more, like polymorphism, like you were talking about, live in a room with no click, and trying to make it sound a lot more organic, because that's going to be the complete flip side of what this EP is, which is very, it's almost like coldly calculated design.
Mm-hmm. What do you see for the future of the music industry in 2021? Because like, this is obviously affecting both of us. Like, what's your outlook on it? What's your trajectory? What's your honest opinion on this? Or is it just, you don't know?
Well, I think everyone hopes for some sense of normality and getting back to live performances. Obviously everyone hopes for that, but that's, I feel like a lot further along in the future than we actually think it is. We'd like to hope that it's just, January 1st hits 2021. It's like, now we got concerts again. Nah, it's probably going to be a good amount of time before that seems okay.
Yeah, viable. And were you pretty like, at this point, back in March, were you thinking at this point, hey man, like this would be over by now?
I don't even know, to be honest. In March, I guess, I was more along the camp of this probably isn't going to be as intense as they're making it, and look at where we are now. Mm-hmm. It's really affected everybody on the planet. So I think we all hope for some sense of normality, but that's not the reality. The reality is we have to learn how to cope with it, and I don't know, humans are pretty adaptive. Yeah,
as you're saying, with like the whole people finding ways to do lessons or anything like that, and like, I mean, you're adapting too. I mean, in every way, and I think that's something everybody can take back out of this, is just how, whether how you started as a musician, we're always trying to find that new thing to make us change, Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's in ways that we don't want it to be, such as COVID, and other times it's in ways that we don't even expect it, that's in a positive or negative, But it's like just taking it as it comes.
I'd like to think this whole year was somewhat of a positive,
Mm-hmm.
At least for me. I tried to make the most out of it. But no one could have predicted something like this.
Yeah,
but unless you're Bill Gates.
Unless you're Bill Gates. But on that note, bro, do you want to plug anything? Your Instagram, because we've almost been going for an hour.
Wow, that long already?
Almost, yeah. So if you want to plug your Instagram handle, your Bandcamp, or anything like that.
Yeah, it's just Thrailkill, Thrailkill.
For Instagram, Twitter, everything?
Yeah, if you just Google that, a bunch of the stuff should come out. My Instagram is Westkill, all one word.
Mm-hmm.
Wes Thrailkill. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
And what was the name of the album? We didn't even get the name out.
Detach.
Detach by Thrailkill, coming out end of 2020. Hopefully. All right, man. Well, thanks. This has been another episode of the DP Podcast with Wes Thrailkill. Thanks so much for joining me, bro. Appreciate you, man.